Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. Presented by Carolina Lightweight. Come grip with us. When the action begins in the studio, our referees for tonight's event are Gato, Azul, and Carolina Real Streamers. For the viewers in attendance and Facebook and YouTube users around the world, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Live from the Gato Azul TV studio in Louisville, Texas, it's time! What's up, slime lovers? I'm your host, Chris, a.k.a. Gato Azul.
What's up? How are you?
Good. Next to me, we got my boy Chris from Texas Fishing Addiction Guide Service. And my co-host over the top of him is Mr. Jamie Dunn, Carolina Lightweights.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody? How y'all doing?
How are y'all?
Doing good, brother.
Doing good. How are you? Doing good. Doing good.
So for the guys that aren't familiar with you, I've known you for quite a while. We've been pretty good friends now for, I don't know, the last 3 or 4 years. But I've known you probably for 10 years. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you, where you fish, what you're into?
Well, I'm a guide here in Texas, of course, and my primary guide service originally was like Alligator gar on the Trinity River. I've been doing that for over 20 years. And then, of course, you know, on the reservoir here, I live right here by Richland Chambers, and I guide for literally everything out there: hybrid striper, white bass, you know, trophy blue cat in the wintertime, eater catfish in the spring and fall. I've got a pretty wide array of fish I guide for, but my bread and butter was, you know, what really helped me make my fishing career was the gar fishing. You know, that's where I got all my sponsors and you know, that's where I made my success, I guess you would say, as a fishing guide.
So what stretch of the river are you fishing? I know, but for everybody that doesn't, where are you fishing? And, you know, you've been doing it forever. So where did you start? Where have you ended up?
Yeah. Well, you know, I first started just far as, you know, fishing for gar. I probably caught my first one when I was just I wasn't even a teenager yet. I think I was probably 11 or 12 when I first caught my first one. But, you know, it was just always a interesting fish to me. And I'm going to be honest, you know, and a lot of, you know, alligator gar guides shy away from this subject. But I mean, honestly, you know, even as a young kid, we shot them bow fishing and of course, like a lot of guys have. And it's sort of, I guess, you know, it's a sort of a learning process. As you get old, you sort of respect fish and people and animals and everything a little bit different of you. And you know, I eventually got to where I just couldn't, you know, no way I could kill a fish like that that's lived 60 or 70 years, you know. And I actually tag them for Texas Park and Wildlife, and I've tagged a little over 3,000 since June of 2019 on the stretch.
Fish.
Yeah. And that's on the stretch of the river. I fish primarily there off of Highway 287. It's called Baker's Landing. It's just below Richland Chambers Reservoir. And I'll run sometimes. I've run 40 miles upriver and 40 miles downriver. So I cover a lot of stretch of river on a day. I'm not stingy on fuel when
you got to go where the fish are.
With me. I have run. Yeah. And, you know, if there's a lot of pressure on the river and a lot of guides, I'll run sometimes 25, 30 miles before I ever drop a bait.
It's gotten a lot more popular in the last 10 years. I think it seems like
it really has.
Killing them, but I see a lot more guys now that are doing it for the sport rather than dumping them on the bank or whatever. So
Yeah, they're like I say, they're a cool fish, and they're really amazing. Because they if you look online and you look up alligator gar fossils, they look identical to the fish that exist today. So they're basically unchanged for thousands or millions of years. So that tells you when they were created, they didn't have to evolve much. They have stayed the same their whole existence. So they must be pretty perfect fish if you look at it that way.
Now,
they
with
live a
all those
long
fish,
time. It's a slow growth rate. They live a long time. When I was a kid, I heard of, fish that were 350 pounds. And I know there's still probably, it seemed like somebody caught a giant out of the Mississippi last year. And then just before that, there was a world record caught. Seems like that one was caught in South Texas. You've caught one world record class fish. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, in September of 2012, I had a client catch one that was 100 by 42, which was 8'4" with a 42-inch girth, and that was in September. And so if that fish would have been caught in the spring, there's no telling what she would have weighed. I mean, she was caught in late summer and still was a giant. Don't even do her justice, really. But to get to the 8-foot club, there's very few people will actually do that. In the gar fishing world, it's that's an elite class to break 8 foot.
That's an incredible fish. So, tell us where you were, general type of setup you were fishing, why you think he was in there, and what you were using. Tell us a little bit about that catch.
Well, and it was weird because it was one of those days where it was just a slow fishing day, and we'd caught a few small fish, and it was at the end of the day, and it was just, I guess, one of those things like fate, and we tried one more spot. It was a spot I'd fished a lot of times and caught a lot of good fish in it, 7-foot fish, but I'd never seen this particular fish in there at all, so I had no idea that fish was in that hole. And so we put the baits out and we were just about to leave. I picked up the other 2 rods because I had a couple set on the shoreline, with in rod holders in that big bend where I could watch them, and then we fished one out of the boat, etc. But we picked up the other rod and I was just trolling up to the bank with my trolling motor to grab that rod out of the rod holder, and it started taking line, and ended up that was that fish, just at the very end of it. I mean, right at the buzzer, and it, I would like to claim I'm the best guy in the world, like a lot of these guys do, but it wasn't. It was just the right time and fate, and that caught that fish, and she's by far the biggest fish I've ever caught. Now I've caught some high 7s, 7/8, 7/9s, right at 8 foot. But she was just a true river monster, a different class of fish.
I want one. I want to come. Well, you need to get your back fixed, I guess, where I can come get on your boat.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it, though.
So for the guys that tell us the name of your guide service and how guys can get a hold of you.
Okay. Well, I've got
2 times throughout the show.
Yeah, I've got 2 guide services actually. My original guide service for the gar is Gar Fishing Addiction, and then then I created the other website and guide service, which is Texas Fishing Addiction. And so I market actually both types of fishing under the Texas Fishing Addiction website. But I've been guiding, like I said, over 20 years in total, and
you got a high success rate. I gotta say, every time I see you, it's a boatload of fish. It doesn't matter whether it's trophy blue cats, which I know are not easy to catch here in Texas. If you're a successful trophy blue catter in Texas, you've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
You got a high success rate. That's one of the things why we became good friends. And it doesn't matter if you're catching hybrids, eaters, trophies, or gator gar. It seems like you're on them year round. So,
well, man, I try my best. I mean, as a guide, that of course, I'm out there to make money, but I want my clients to be successful, and I feel like I'm cutting myself short if I don't produce. And man, I take it personal. I've had times where it would be a slow day, and hey, if my people wanted to stay, we'd stay till it got dark or whatever the case was to catch fish. And I've always applied that mentality to every type of fish I'm fishing for, whether it's for eater catfish or alligator gar. I want my clients to enjoy their trip, have a good time, and catch fish.
Chris, did you want to go through the list?
Yeah, I'm having problems with my mouse, man. I can't scroll back up. So can you run through the list?
I'm starting to see a lot of people asking questions and stuff, guys. And yeah, if y'all have any questions for Chris, definitely let us know tonight, and we'll get them answered for you.
Let me go grab a charger for this mouse so I can start scrolling better. Give me 1 minute, guys. Sorry.
We got Mr. Billy Beaver. What's up, brother? We got Jeff Martin up in the house. Let's see. Alex, how's it going, my friend? Texas Boys Catfishing. What's up? We got Chuck Watkins, Bright Lights. What's up, Chuck? We got Eddie Gross. How you doing, Eddie? We got Richard. How you doing, Richard? Let's go on down here. Indiana Chris. How you doing, buddy? Eagle Eyes. How you doing, my friend? Keep on. Circle Hook Productions. How you doing, my friend? Guys, if Chris knows everybody by first names a lot of times, and I go pretty much by what I see. I'm better with faces than I am names, but Johnny Small Peppers, how you doing, buddy? Shotty Fisherman, how you doing, brother? Bruce is up in the house. Let me go on down here. See if I forgot anybody. Looks like got everybody on the YouTube side. Welcome in, everybody. And Jeff Martin, I want to say congratulations, brother. Looks like
congrats, Jeff, on being a grandpappy.
Yep. Congratulations, my friend.
Let me go get a charging dock.
But yeah, guys, if y'all have any questions for Chris, like I said, alligator gar fishing, all his techniques. I saw here where one was. Let me go through, try to find it. What kind of boats you fishing out of, Chris?
I have a custom jet boat. It's a 24-foot elite custom jet boat. On the stretch of the Trinity I fish, when it gets real low, the water, I mean, you literally will run through rock shoals where you can see the rocks, and it's 6-8 inches deep in places if we're in a real drought, unlike this year. But under most circumstances, though, if the river's really low, you have to have either a mud motor of some type or a jet boat or airboat, of course, to get up and down that stretch of the river I fish through there.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, man, boat setups are really important for the type of fishing you do. And I know you do a lot of catfishing and alligator gar fishing. Is there a lot of different setups that you have to have, or it's pretty well almost the same?
Well, the gar, I mean, of course, it's completely different than what the catfish. On the gar fishing, I'm using like real heavy braided line. Like I run 130-pound braid, and then a steel leader, a 90-pound steel leader, and like a 3/0 treble hook when I fish for alligator gar. Some guys use little small J hooks. I mean, some people use giant treble hooks, but it just depends on everybody's a little different. Now, my catfishing, it just depends on, my bread and butter, especially trophy fishing, is drift fishing. That's what I prefer. I like anchoring up some, but I really enjoy drifting and watching them take downs, and that's just my favorite type of trophy catfishing. There on Richland Chambers where I fish, and I'm blessed to be on such a fertile lake. Literally everything that's in that reservoir is super plentiful. I mean, it's loaded with hybrids and white bass and blue cat and trophy blue cat.
Doesn't have a ton of pressure on it like a lot of our other lakes. It's just far enough outside everybody's range.
It's it's a little different lake. I mean, you won't catch a lot of 50s and 60 plus, but I mean, it is absolutely infested with 30, 40-pound fish. I think Texas Catfishing, they fished with me a trip with me last winter, I believe it was. No, yeah. I'm getting old. You got to forgive me. I'm senile almost now. You see all this gray I got going on.
I turned 50 yesterday. I'm feeling it. We went to Six Flags today, and boy, I'm freaking worn out.
Man. Yeah, for everybody that don't know, Chris is hit that over the hill. He hit that 50 yesterday.
Oh, yeah. Congratulations. I
made it. I never would have thought I'd made it this long, man. Tell you
me neither. I always told everybody I won't never live to be old.
Hey, we're all getting younger. That's the way I'm looking at it. We're getting younger every day. Man. Chris, I got a question for you. Chris M. Do you ever fish Fork Lake? That's Lake Fork. Lake Fork, I'm sorry.
No, I have, but the only time I've ever really went up there is just pleasure fishing myself. I've crappie fished up there, and I've actually went up there and fished for Channel Cat. Fork has some really nice quality channels, or it used to. I hadn't fished up there in years for them, but that's the only time I've actually been there is just pleasure fishing. Never have guided any trips or anything.
Nice.
Chuck Watkins says 50 is the new 30.
See? Chuck is thinking like I am, man. Oh, man.
And I don't feel 30, but I'm probably 10 times the fisherman I was when I was 30. If I had my 30-year-old body with my 50-year-old fishing ability, boy, I'd be forced to be reckoned with.
Oh, that's like
trained up though to throw that heavy net. So
I know.
Hopefully he can take that task over from me real soon because that's getting old.
That's what we always wait, man, until they grow up. Our kids grow up a little bit and start taking over the heavy things that we don't want to do no more.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Says Chris, what's the best month for gar fishing, and what bait do you use?
Man, I get asked that all the time. And I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, if I had to pick a month, I would say probably April, May, June. And not really particularly to catch a giant, but just because it's usually the most aggressive bite because the fish have been, pretty dormant through the winter, through the cold water. And then once spring starts hitting and the water starts warming up, they really start feeding, a lot more aggressively. So as far as just getting bites and catching numbers and fish, period, those are the months that I would choose. Now, with that being said, I mean, you can catch a monster. I've caught monsters every month out of the year. I've had clients. I normally don't gar fish at all in the winter because the cold water temps, you might fish 8 hours and never even get a pickup. I mean, literally. And so it's a gamble. It depends on how the weather is, if the sun's shining. But I have caught big fish in, like, say, December and January. I've caught some 7-foot plus fish in the middle of the winter before. But it just all depends on the timing. And you just never know. But because I always get asked, hey, when's the best time to catch a giant? And I always tell people, anytime we go, that's the best time because, every spot I stop and drop my hooks in, there's going to be 150-pound plus fish in that hole. Because that's what I'm targeting is the bigger fish. That's I want to catch. I mean, and I've been successful in the gar fishing world, but every time I go, I don't care if it's a new client or old client. I want to try to catch the biggest fish in the river. That day when I'm out there.
That's for sure. I had a question here also for you, Chris. Do you ever eat any of the smaller gar that you catch, or you catch and release?
I have years ago. Just to try it, and quite honestly, it's okay. And depending on how you fix it, it's good in certain ways. But I don't. I mean, I actually practice catch and release. On 99% of my trips. Every once in a while, I have somebody want to keep a small one. Just to try one, just to see what it tastes like or whatever. But like on the stretch of the Trinity I fish. You can't keep a fish over 48 inches long. So anything over 48 inches, you have to release anyway. So that, they implemented that law on the Trinity River on that section just to try to protect the big brood fish, and I earlier on that other question I forgot to mention, they said, what bait I use it, and anything that's a non-bait fish that, it depends on the area like you're in. Like here in the area I'm in, carp and buffalo are the primary baits you use. But in the farther south you go, those guys who use mullet, tilapia, here in Texas, because some of the southern lakes have tilapia, down there. And so those are the primary food fish for gar in that area. But here, I mean, if I had my number one bait,
they'll eat a buffalo, they'll eat a carp, they'll eat anything.
Yeah, they're an ultimate predator, and I mean, I've heard people say, "Oh, they eat this or that." And they're going to eat anything that gets in front of them that they can eat.
I can't tell you how many big fish that we saw injured swimming around where we were fishing last weekend. I'm telling you, 10, 15-pound buffalo with the top of it just had a giant bite mark on it. We saw a drum swimming by that was probably an 8-pound drum with just almost like it was bit in half. I know what bit that thing. It's a big old alligator gar. So, I mean, they're getting those big buffalo, big carp. And there's quite a few drum up in those areas too. So I bet they'd eat anything that was in front of their face that was flopping. They typically eat something that's alive, right, Chris? Even though you're fishing with cut bait, when they're alive, they're going after something that's alive.
Yeah, right. They're a predator fish. I mean, they're targeting live fish. I mean, and that's why when I'm using bait, I mean, I want the freshest bait that I can get. I use, like I said, primarily carp and buffalo if I can't get carp. But carp is what I would rather have if possible. But I always want my bait as fresh as possible, and I have a lot of guys who'll catch it for me, and I always tell them, "Hey, man, treat it just like you're going to eat it yourself." I get it on ice and take care of it. Yeah.
Now, Chris, you were talking earlier about the tagging system that you've tagged probably close to 3,000 fish. Are you involved in the study of the tagging system, far as the information, the growth of the fish, all of that? Are you involved in any of that as being someone who does a lot of the tagging?
Yes, I've tagged since June of 2019 on the Trinity, on the section I fish primarily. I've tagged a little over 3,000 gar there on that stretch of the river, and the biologists, they take care of all the input, inputting all the data, the tag numbers, and we document the length of the fish, the location it was caught, and Of course, it's put into a database, and the tags have a phone number on there and a tag number. And then if that fish is caught, whoever catches it can call Texas Park and Wildlife, and most people are going to measure a gar. That's what people are after when they catch it. They're going to want to know how big it was. So then they can call the number that's on the tag, and the biologist can tell them, hey, this fish was caught, say, June 2021, and they'll tell them sort of where the fish was caught, and it's amazing on the distance some of these fish will travel. I've had some.
I wanted to ask you. It's like when somebody catches one 2 years later, how far do they move? I know some of them probably stay real close, but I would imagine some of them really like to get up and move. So how far does some of them travel?
I've seen some of my fish, easily 20 miles difference. And then I've had some. I've got one particular fish that I've caught 3 times, and this fish has a big scar on her back. And actually, a real popular whitetail biologist that's here in Texas, his name is Larry Weissoon. They called him Mr. Whitetail. He's known. He was in hunting magazines and TV shows. But anyway, he actually caught the fish the last time it was caught. And that fish has been in that same location all 3 times. But, so some of them apparently do stay sort of stationary, but a lot of them will travel just miles and miles. I mean, I'll catch them, tag them, say 10 miles downriver from the ramp, and then the next time they're caught, they might be 10 miles up from the ramp, But one thing I have noticed, though, very few of them are downriver after they're tagged. It's always up. So I mean, just a very small percentage will be downriver from where they were tagged the first time. It's normally upriver. Now, I didn't tag this particular fish, but back in 2007, they had a tagging program way south of us, down below Crockett down there. A fish was tagged by another alligator gar guy, Kurt Kirkland. He tagged the fish in 2007, and then I caught it at 287, just below Highway 31, and in 10 years later, and that fish probably had traveled, it's got to be 100 miles in 10 years. I mean, it's a long, long ways from here, basically Highway 31, all the way down south down there at Crockett at 21 with the way the river turns. So, I mean, that fish traveled a huge distance during that time. And it was caught twice, actually. It was caught, I think, a year after he tagged it, and it was still caught in that area. So you can knock a year off of that basically. So 9 years that fish traveled all that distance. And I think it's all related to the floods. How much flood rains, they migrate when all that current's in the river.
To me, it seems amazing that the ones that's going to stay in a certain area pretty much all their life, and then you have some, like you were just saying, over about 100 miles. I wonder what causes some of them to be more territorial, and then you got some that's pretty much just traveling all their life.
Yeah.
Billy Bever wants
like to know, Chris.
Billy wanted to ask, with so much water in the Trinity, because we got high flow right now. I was down there last week, and it was insane. Do you fish the backwater when you got high flow like that? What kind of areas are you looking for?
It just, it all depends. The river, I mean, it depends on what section of the river you're fishing. But like here at 287, I can fish the main river until it gets nearly out of banks here. Now, once it breaks the banks, the fish go everywhere into the woods and pastures, and they're just too scattered out to get on a good bite. But I will fish the river, the main river, when a lot of guys aren't fishing it. You just got to find this small pockets with current breaks, and then you're very limited on where you can fish. And because I've been guiding for so long and fishing the river so long, a lot of those places I just know what to look for, and some of them just year after year, will produce little bitty pockets where the current break is, and those fish will get up in there. And I will mark them on side scan, or I used to mark them on side scan. Now I'm one of those live scope guides.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I mark them on live scope with it on perspective mode, where it's basically like side scan but live. And so I can see exactly how big the fish is, where it's sitting, and then I'll just get right up above the fish and then just pitch my baits right back to her. I mean, sometimes I'll literally be 20 yards from the fish or less, and I'm just pitching the bait just right out the back of my boat and dropping it in there in that current break.
You like to put it up on bank? How are you setting up on them?
Yeah, I'm always fishing, along the edge most of the time, depending on now if the river's real low to where you don't have hardly any current at all and it's real still, I'll fish it everywhere, literally anywhere I can put my baits because it's shallow regardless. On the Trinity it can be anywhere from inches to 30 foot deep even in the drought of the year because the big bends in the river will be so washed out, and it'll be 25, 30 foot deep in those holes.
Now, Chris, with gator gar fishing, it seems like y'all were talking about earlier about how popular it's getting. I saw, Chris, you were out there last weekend, man. You're guiding for them. As much popular as the gator gar fishing is starting to get, the studies and stuff that y'all guys have done and all, how important is it to get the information out there more now than ever to kind of, take care of these alligator gar? I mean, what would you tell the people?
Well, I mean, these fish, there's a lot of contradictions and opinions on how fast these fish can grow. But I'm telling you, from my point of view and the tagging I've done, they grow real fast their first few years of life and reach 4 foot or so, and even close to 5 at times with just in a few years. But then after that, they slow down and it's normally about a half inch a year is what I see. Sometimes an inch per year, but that's after that initial growth spurt when they're young. It's nothing for one. A couple of years old could be up to 36 inches long. I mean, the biologists will tell you that. And it's just after that point that they slow down. And I think that's I've just seen it over and over in the fish that I've tagged. And so I know 100% there's, and I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, just like anything else. You're going to see some fish. And I think the males and females, it's a little different on their growth rates too, because they have to be 10 years old before they reach sexual maturity, to even reproduce. So that those factors.
Females get supersized, right?
The females are the big. Yeah, the females, the big brood females will be way bigger than most of the males. The males can be, 4 foot, 5 foot long, and you'll see them following a female up into the shallow water and, flooded pastures and stuff. And she might have 5 or 6 males following that one fish,
I've seen photos of 20 of them following one giant female.
It's an amazing sight to see. And that's the thing. That's what makes them vulnerable, when they're like that. They've even closed the river, here during that time to protect them,
A lot of places have made it where you're not allowed to fish for them during the spawn. I think that's when they're probably I think it's really the boat fishermen they're trying to keep off of them because they can just pick out the big female out of the boat.
Yeah, right. That's honestly, that's when they're the most vulnerable is during the spawn. Otherwise, if the river's normal conditions, it's pretty stained and your average bow fisherman is not going to be successful. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. They're not, because it's sort of something you have to learn how to do, like anything, like trophy catfishing or whatever. But because you're having to shoot at a fish in stained or muddy water that's going to come up and surface just for a second or two. So most people are just not going to be successful until they devote some time and effort and learn how to do it. But
Bruce,
that's really when those fish are.
Bruce said, do you ever run into former clients fishing your spots?
All the time.
That's
all
part
the
of
time.
guiding.
I mean, I've had,
and I think, the guys that get upset with that, if you're getting upset with that, then you're going to be mad your whole life, because a lot of guys buy a guide so they can learn. And You know,
Yep.
go out with somebody like Chris and you go catch a 7-footer, and of course you're going to want to go do that again. Now, you're not going to be able to go fish the same spot every time, right, Chris? I mean,
No,
spot may produce
especially
1 week.
yeah,
Next
it
week,
just depends on. Yeah, it depends on what you're after, of course, the species. But I mean, it can change daily, and so that's one thing. It has never bothered me at all because I mean, I have people, especially on the lake trips, man. They tell me up front, "Hey, I want to book a trip so I can learn how to fish that lake, and and learn some techniques." And so it doesn't bother me. It really don't.
I mean, a lot
You know,
of people don't understand. You're out there day in, day out, so you've got the fish pretty well down the pattern, pretty well down the pat. So if you're taking a client out, you take him to a spot, you end up catching a nice gar or a nice catfish. You know that pattern better than anybody. So if he tries to go back out, hell, he might not understand where they're traveling and stuff at a lot of times too.
Oh yeah, and it depends on the time of year and everything on the conditions and where you fish and how you fish, to a degree uh, on the Trinity. But like I said, it's never bothered me. But I've had people, book guard trips, and of course, the next year they'd bottom a boat and they're down there fishing, and I always wave at them and don't hold any disdain, because heck, that's the way to learn. I mean, I always tell people all the time on Facebook and different things. That's the best way to learn how to fish. You're going to go with a guide. He's going to show you a productive method and at least part of the puzzle for you to learn to fish. And you're going to learn a lot more in one guided trip with a guide than you're going to learn in a year of fishing by yourself. Or more.
That's sure. I also think that's a good reason why it's important for a guide when they're out there with clients to teach them the right way about responsible harvest, about big fish conservation, so that when they go do it, you're not creating these freaking problems. It's like, if you're teaching somebody to do it the right way, and then they go and they're taking care of the fish and releasing the fish. Like you said, you've caught the same fish 3 or 4 times before. Hopefully,
and
that catches on with more and more anglers.
Yeah. And I can always tell, man, I will see pictures online, especially alligator gar, even with guides. You can tell when a fish has been out of the water a long time with an alligator gar because their fins the blood runs to their fins and they get super red. And so anytime you see a gar photo with a couple of gar in the boat and one of them, they'll say doubled up or whatever, and then one of the fish, all its tail is just blood red, I know that, hey, that fish has been out of the water for a while.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times it's just for photos, but that's the thing I see a lot, that a lot of people gar fishing for these fish, they're catching, releasing, but they're just keeping the fish out of the water way too long. When you see their fins all red and bloodied up, that blood just goes to them. It just tells you that fish is needs to be back in the water a long time before that.
So when these gar move through, they kind of move through in groups, right? So it's not uncommon to hook into 2 of them. And that's kind of what I've seen is when we get one bite, while you're got one on, you got another rod that's going down. There's 3 rods going down.
You can see, I've got videos, matter of fact, on my phone with all 3 rods and even 4 rods at a time running. And them gar is
much more than that, right, Chris? Because you're going to have problems.
I usually fish 3 on average, especially if I'm fishing out of the back of the boat. Like where you were talking about fishing, Chris, back there, it's sometimes you'll have 3 baits out or 4 baits out, and it's like you flip a switch and all of them will go at the same time. It's
like you got nothing, and then all of a sudden you see one roll. You're like, okay, there's one, and then all of a sudden it's 3 rolls, 5. It's like, okay, they're coming through, and then rods start going down.
Now,
on the main reel. Oh, go ahead.
Now in Texas, what's the reason they started cracking down on gar fishing so much? Is it the bow fishermen, or is it the everyday fishermen, or what's the reason for that?
It was targeted again, for because of the bow fishing, just because it, especially during the spawn, these big fish are just so vulnerable to be shot, and that's why they implemented those laws to protect them. Because you hear so many people, debate how old these fish are. I mean, I've heard people say 6-foot fish wasn't 2 or 3 years old. But I mean that's hogwash. Yeah, that's hogwash. It takes a fish quite a few years. Well, that fish, matter of fact, I told you that that other guy tagged in 2007. That fish was tagged in 2007, and it was 36 inches long. And then I caught it in 2017, and it was 73 inches long. And so, 10 years. And the biologist said, that fish there was on the upper end of the growth rate, so it was doing good for that size. But a lot of them just don't. I mean, I catch the same fish, I'll tag it, catch it next year, and it's about a half inch longer. That's it. That's all I ever see.
Their growth rate slows down, right? Pretty much. I mean,
yeah. And like these alligator gar are like, just like big trophy class whitetail deer. Genetics plays a role on those fish as well as, like any other fish.
Chris, I mean, I saw pictures of videos that you put out from this past weekend. Y'all catching some beautiful and some big gator gar, man. Myself personally would be, I would be ecstatic to be able to just watch that fish, take some pictures, feel the
here's
fight.
the beauty of it. You get down in there in the water, because you can't just lift a 7-footer into the boat. You get down in the water with it. I mean, it's just something different about that experience. And they're once you get a hold of them, they're very docile. It's like they're like, okay, he's gonna treat me right, and then you let them swim off. Man, it's something pretty awesome about the whole experience.
By just looking at the pictures, man, I couldn't believe the way you were holding that gator gar. How wide. You were talking about how wide. And
what's crazy is how different a 6-foot is from a 7-foot. Like, we got the 7. Like, man, that really does look like a freaking alligator. I mean, it's crazy looking. Yeah. And they go nuts until you get them to the boat. Till you once they realize I'm caught, they just like, now you can take my picture, you can hug me.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I mean, I would go ecstatic being able to, like you said, just being down in the water, being one-on-one with that fish. It's a once in a lifetime trip for sure. To be able to do something like that.
When you're bringing them to the boat, they're doing the craziest stuff. They're coming right at 5 feet from the boat. They're literally like trying to come up in the boat, mouth wide open, just doing the most epic things. But then, like I said, once you get them caught and they realize I'm caught, they just let you handle them, take pictures. And then when they swim off, they just kind of, they just swim off. And
to me, it seems like it could be about as addicting as catfishing.
It's more.
It just looked unbelievable, at the drilling rush, man. But I can tell through you, Chris, by watching you. And it's like y'all just drilling was just pumping, and y'all guys were just having a good time. So I know you see quite a bit of people being a guide. I know you've got to see a lot of people coming back year after year for sure.
Oh yeah, I have guys. Some guys fish with me 2 or 3 times a year, and I have people come from all over the world to fish for these fish. There's something special about them, that's for sure. And people always ask, how do they fight, etc. Their fight is short-lived compared to saltwater fish or something, but during that short amount of time, they are giving you all they got and all you want.
Yeah. they make 4 or 5 hard runs where
Yeah.
they'll run, not like a saltwater fish where it'll run 100 yards, but it'll run, 40 yards hard. And you can't do anything with it. It's just going, and then you bring it back.
There's
it gets close and it does it again.
Chris, I don't know.
Had,
for such a big, crazy size fish, they do some acrobatic, insane stuff.
Yeah, I've had 7-foot fish come completely get complete air out of the water like a tarpon, before.
Yeah.
No, it's funny watching the, I have clients come and then, we'll catch, say, a smaller fish, maybe 4.5 footer or whatever. And I, I'll say something like, well, this is a smaller one. And they'll say, are you kidding me? This is a small one. They just they're blown away because pictures really don't do these fish justice. Even they don't, when you see them online until you actually hold one in your arms.
I saw, Chris, I was looking at the pictures real good in the video y'all were showing. I couldn't imagine those fish getting any bigger than that, man. Because
that's what I said. I was like, damn, they get bigger than this. I mean, they get over 8 feet,
I watched the gentleman almost go off the back of y'all's boat trying to, bring one in. I was like, man, that was crazy.
Milton's like, whoa. Damn it.
I had a guy, I guess, well, I've had several of them actually before because sometimes I run a pretty tight drag, that way we'll get a good hook set.
Yeah,
I have my wife, which she comes a lot on my trips and helps me tag the fish, but he was a smaller built guy, and man, I told him, I said, when you kick that reel in gear, I said, I want you to set that hook as hard as you can. And man, he reared back and set that hook, and I mean, that fish drug him down in the floor of the boat and almost drug him out. And he was so embarrassed, with my wife there that fish done him that way. But I told him, I said, don't feel bad. You're not the first person I've seen that happen to.
Yeah, man, that looks pretty wild.
Even when you're around really good anglers and they haven't done a lot of gar fishing, you see them doing some funny shit. You're like, I mean, it's just fun because you can read your buddies. It's like, rookie.
Chris, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll be over here high fiving or doing something.
It is a special type. It's a special type fishing, because people they do get addicted to it.
They are very difficult to catch. The hookup ratio is kind of low compared to other fish where you're catching almost everything you hook. On a good blue cat day, I'll catch every one I hook. Now on a bad day, I may miss 80% of them, but most of the time you got a high hookup ratio. Alligator gar, on the other hand, you may have 12 fish and only get three of them. And maybe 4 or 5 if you're doing it really good. If you're having it really good.
And I'm gonna tell you, Chris, there also, man, that's another thing about gar is some days they bite real finicky, and some days it's worse than that. They'll pick the baits up and you set the hook, nothing. They just want to swim with them in their mouth and they don't want to eat them, so it just varies. And you wonder, why is this fish picking this bait up and swimming around 10 minutes and still won't eat it, But I try not to let my fish swallow the hook. I really do. So I set my hook on the run 90% of the time, on my
that's
trips.
what we were doing, which is not kind of what other guys had taught me. But even on the run, some of them were still gobbling that thing down.
Yeah.
He's chewing on it. He's chewing. Go ahead. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, he's running. I mean, everybody else has told me wait until they stop and then turn and do something different. Yeah. I'm like, all right, but I was doing it. I mean, hell, I had a pretty good hookup ratio that day.
Now, Chris, for the ones that don't know, and myself, when do you know the right time to set the hook on that fish? What gives you that indication of knowing exact the right time?
Well, man, I'm gonna tell you, everybody fishes different. For these gar, the guides have their own technique and how they do it. I used to, back years ago, I would just follow. I would let the fish pick the baits up, and I would just follow them down the river with my trolling motor and just give them forever. And then so the fish, would actually swallow the hook and the bait. and over the years, I just got away from that. And so now most of my fish, honestly, I set on the run. I mean, I do. I miss a lot of fish because of that, but I'd rather miss them than have them swallow the hook, completely. So that's just my style of fishing, though.
So when you're watching them run, and is there a certain point within that run that you might see them start to slow down a hair, and then you just let them keep on running?
Oh, Jamie, they were somehow Milton knew that they were chewing on the bait. He's like, oh, he's chewing on it. So they typically, Chris, they typically grab it and take off kind of like a puppy dog with this toy in the yard. And they're like, oh, I got this toy, and then when they get a little further away from you, they're like, okay, now I'm going to get this toy in my mouth. And they reposition it. And that's
a lot of guides or even people, they use like the second run. They use like hit them on the second time they run. They'll let them run with it, stop, and then when they take off again, that's when you hit them for a rule of thumb anyway. But it just all depends on how the fish are feeding that day too, because sometimes nothing works. You're blank one after another after another. Yeah.
Yeah, I went over 12 one day, and I'm like, well, I freaking suck.
Yeah,
because coming from a catfishing background, it is a lot different. So you're sitting there, when that rod just buries, you're sitting here ready. All right, I've got you now. So basically, holding yourself back from, waiting until the right time has got to be nerve. I mean, just your nerves has got to be just going crazy.
Yeah, it drives people. It drives people insane when you're sitting in the boat when they go on a gar fishing trip. When they hear that reel peeling line out, they cannot stand it. They break and run. I say, hold on.
Yeah, most of us are cat fishermen, and you start running. It's like, get on it and crank down. But you do that, you'll lose everyone. I mean, you will not ever catch one.
Yeah, you've got to give them a little bit of time, because even on the run, that fish will be maneuvering that bait around in its mouth, getting it right to where preparing it to where it can eat it,
Yeah, that to me, man, I would have to really just learn how to slow your roll, just wait, because I'm like you when you said that, that reel's just singing out. I mean, it's
that's where going with the guide will really help you on that hookup.
They
know.
Chris, I had this guy one time. He called me, and it was during the week, and he said, he said, I'm down here fishing on the Trinity, and he said, I was just curious if you got any openings. He said, me and my son are here. And he was actually from Missouri, and he was a commercial fisherman up there and an avid fisherman, so he brought his boat down, and him and his son, and they had fished for 3 days, and they hadn't caught a fish. And then I took them out, and we had a fish boated within 30 minutes, and he was like, now I know what we were doing wrong, and basically they were setting the hook immediately, and so they were missing every fish,
Yeah. Man, that's
wild.
There's
something to seeing somebody do it successfully that's like, okay. All right.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's one of the reasons, I'm a guide. I love seeing people catch big fish, and it's just something real special about seeing people catch their biggest fish they've ever caught, whether it be a trophy blue cat or a big alligator gar.
Like I said, Chris, until you was holding that fish up, man, watching the videos, I didn't realize how big them alligator gar, man, get down there. I mean,
oh man,
that was crazy.
I've caught some 6-footers. I've never seen a 7-footer. I can only imagine. I mean, now I've gone back. I'm looking at these 8-footers, and I'm like, holy crap, the 7-footer's massive. 1 foot difference is a major difference when you're talking about a fish that's that size. I can only imagine what it is.
Yeah.
How old?
Yeah.
How old can you imagine some of these gar are? I mean, really? I mean, these.
Well, I know just now. This isn't a guess or anything. There was actually a fish shot on the Brazos bow fishing a few years ago, and I believe it's the current record over there. and that fish was little over 8 foot, and they took the otolith bone out of that fish's head, and it was actually aged, and it was 60 years old.
Wow.
Now, here on Richland Chambers, a friend of mine was bow fishing several years back, and he shot the lake record at the time, and that fish was 711, and they said that it wasn't, it was around 40, so it can vary from fish to fish, but there's no such thing as a 6-foot gar that's 2 or 3 years old.
So can you go up there at the inlet in Richland Chambers and see, but can you see big gator gar up in there? I mean,
Right
now, if I wanted to take the War Machine to Richland Chambers, could I go to the inlet? I know what they look like on side image. Could I go up in there and start marking them and throw down on them?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's pretty easy to find gar, especially depending on the time of year, because they're going to roll. I mean, you're going to see these fish, and people always ask where to fish, and that's the easiest way, especially if you're bank fishing or don't have the electronics, is these fish are going to tell on themselves. They're going to roll, and so you can get a good idea of how many fish are in a spot and the size of those fish, that are there too.
I see them in fairly large groups in the lake, especially like when I've been up at Texoma. There's times where I'm like, looks like a damn log jam on my side image. There's so many big alligator gar in there.
Well, and a few of the lakes, of course, scattered out in Texas have alligator gar in them, and a lot of times they will school. You find a big school of long nose, the alligator gar will be mixed in with them too. Out there on the main lake,
because long nose are in giant groups, but I'll see big gator gar with them. I mean, they just look different on side image. I mean, they look completely. I mean, it looks like a damn log floating in the river.
Wow.
In the lake.
And especially,
except I'm in an area with no logs. It's like,
Jeff was wondering, do you ever catch any big flatheads while you're alligator gar fishing?
Oh yeah, all the time. And all my life growing up, of course, I always heard, flatheads, they won't eat nothing but live bait. But I catch them all the time on cut carp on the Trinity River when I'm
that's a good section
gar fishing.
Big flatheads.
I don't catch them. Yeah, I don't catch them as much as I would if I were, because the gar, I'm actually fishing different water than I would for a flathead. Where flathead, you want to get close to some wood most of the time. Whereas these gar, of course, they're everywhere, but I'm fishing on like sandbars and shallow edges of the river, that are fairly clean, just to keep from getting tangled up, with the fish right off the get-go. And that's another thing with the side scan, when not only am I looking for fish, I'm looking for structure to know if I can put my baits in there without hanging up or not.
Do gar gulp for air?
Yes, that's why they're coming up to the surface. That's what they're doing, is gulping air.
I've got another question.
They live in low oxygen water a lot of times where other fish don't like to be in there, right?
Yeah, they can live in stagnant water with no oxygen at all. In a flooded field, a lot of times them juvenile alligator gar and other types of gar will get trapped when the river goes back down, and man, they will live out in them pastures till it literally dries up to nothing. They'll be swimming in mud and still be alive before they can just live forever there.
Richard Green said the Lake Livingston has many monster gar here from the Trinity River. I believe not the current world record, but the record that was like broken last year was from there. It was on like 8-pound test.
Yeah.
I don't even, they said it was almost an hour and 45-minute fight or something to get it in.
Alex was wondering, technique, if you accidentally had one that swallowed the hook, what's the proper techniques to be able to take care of that big gar? What would you suggest? You cutting your leaders? How would you suggest people to be able to take care of that fish?
Well, I mean, honestly, if that hook is too deep to get out, without injuring that fish more by digging around in there, hitting its gills and stuff and causing it to bleed more, you're better off just to cut the leader and let that fish go. Uh, I know from once again, tagging these fish, I've caught some of these fish 2 and 3 times that I've left the hook in prior and the fish is fine.
Yeah.
So you hear different opinions on whether the hook will kill them. The only time that hook is really going to kill that fish is if it punctures that air bladder. And then, and that's why you don't want to use a huge treble hook, because if they swallow it, the bigger the hook is, the more likely it is to puncture their air bladder.
So what's your go-to treble hook on those that you're using?
I use a 3/0 Eagle Claw, a L774, and a bronze hook. I don't ever use stainless because, once again, if you do have to cut the leader, it'll stay in that fish a long, long time. I've caught a lot of gar that will have big J hooks, like they were on set lines, like throw lines, hanging out the rectum, and the hook's stainless steel, and they've passed it through their entire system. And it hung up there, and the hook still be in pristine condition after being in that fish, for no telling how long.
Now, is that a rule that might be coming down the line, maybe, at what hook you'll have to use for these as the years, as more people start doing it?
I've heard, different, people's opinions on whether the Texas Park Wildlife would ever pass any more regulations regarding that, to require you, like in saltwater, of course, they require you to use circle hooks for lots of types of fishing. But, from my experience,
they won't allow you to have an offset in a lot of saltwater conditions.
Mm-hmm. But I sit here guys all the time talk about catching them on circle hooks, but I have never had any success with the circle hook, to be honest.
So Milton said the guy, that guy that's real popular that catches him on the little hook and says you catch him on these and it's better for him. He said that guy came fishing with him, and after he missed about 6 or 7 in a row, he said, give me your rigs.
It's all, I'm going to tell you, man.
Fish, so.
Yeah, it's all propaganda. It's all propaganda, it really is. I mean, because I've tried every method, every way you can catch a gar, every hook, you name it. And I've tried the bridling method like he talks about. And I had no better. Matter of fact, I think I had a worse hookup ratio with that little hook versus a big hook. But he's a self-proclaimed biologist, internet biologist, and he knows more. Well, just to give you some figures, and I don't mean to bash the guy. He catches a lot of big fish. He really does. But he says that he has caught tens of thousands of alligator gar. Since June of 2019, fishing more than probably any individual guide there is in the world, other than maybe Kirkland. I've tagged 3,000 since June of 2019. So, that tells me he's full of crap if he's sitting there telling everybody he's caught tens of thousands of gar. He'd have to be 500 years old.
Yeah.
So, and I like I say, I'm not meaning to bash him, but, a lot of it, as a lot of guys use their channels to get likes and stuff. And he has a following because of what he does and the techniques he uses. And those people support him, and that's all great. But, a lot of the stuff is just hogwash. He claims he's never killed a gar and stuff like that. But I mean, if you
one way to skin a cat, isn't there?
Any fisherman that has done catch and release, no matter it's a big trophy blue cat or bluegill, if you've turned it loose, there is a chance that it's died. That's just the bottom line.
I always tell guys, now when I turn them loose, they're flopping, but I'm not going to tell you that all the fish that all of us are catching are all surviving, because putting it in your net, the net scrapes off the slime coat, the handling of it flopping around in the boat. You got guys putting them in live wells. Who's to say that the secondary infection doesn't kill the fish a month later?
Well,
I think losing that slime coat is probably killed more fish than what a lot of guys really think.
Cody's fish, Cody Mullenix, the world record blue that was in Athens, they said that's what she died of. Was the biologist told me was an infection from the hook from when she was caught several years prior. And that's what killed her in their tanks up there, was where that hook originally had stuck the bone in that fish's head, and then a secondary infection is what killed her in their tank there at the fish hatchery where they kept her.
Yeah, I think we can only try to take care of them as best we can. And
I try, I boat a lot of my fish. One thing, like in my jet boat, it's got a big open deck, so it makes good pictures, and it's fairly low to the water. So I try to get the fish on the boat, and get my pictures and get it tagged and get it back in the water. And of course, the hotter it is, the quicker you want to get it done. Just to they can breathe air, but it's not the oxygen that's hurting them. It's the stress from being out of the water and the heat, Now,
that goes into my next question is, how hard is it? I mean, how much do you have to take care of these fish? I mean, are they like catfish? I mean, you try to, handle them with, just and care.
They're not delicate. I mean, I wouldn't say they're a delicate fish, but I wouldn't just leave them out of the water an extended amount of time, because I think that's what kills them is stress more than anything. It's just like if somebody held your head under the water, the longer they held it under the water, the more stress you're going to have. And the fish is the same way. He's out of the water and he's feeling stressed because he can't breathe like he should,
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, I tell you, man, those big fish, you definitely want to take care of them and try to catch them for another day for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, show them respect, especially the big ones, man. I mean, but all fish, respect them, but especially when they get to be something special. That's the ones that you're hoping will go back and continue the bloodline.
Right. And I seen where another one of the guys I know that's on Facebook was talking about, even once these fish are so old, they're the main brood fish, but then after a point, he was talking about, the biologist said their eggs were so had so many toxins from being in the water and living that long inside that fish and inside their eggs that possibly some of them real old fish, their eggs wasn't even fertile, so that can go the other way after a point.
Well, I know that Trinity, it's pretty damn toxic, boy.
Oh yeah, and that's
so much trash floating down the river as I did last weekend. It's
right.
sick.
It's terrible, man. It really is. People
right there
always feel ashamed.
I had to be outlawed. I mean, they need to regulate some of whatever that is you see floating down the river. It's plastic bottles, styrofoam cups. I mean, you would see a big swirl with 4,000 water bottles in it. And I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
I mean, and
I guess it was
when we were just sitting there, you would see bottle. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating. 3 bottles, bottle.
Yeah.
Bottle. And there was no time in between. It was a constant just.
How many, did you see any footballs and basketballs? It's usually you can load the boat down with them.
Yes, somebody told me there was furniture floating down and refrigerators, and I'm like, a refrigerator, like, I don't know, man. Like,
man, I'll have clients.
That's the same.
Yeah, I'll have clients from out of state, and I'm always embarrassed when the river's high like that. When we're running down the river, man, there's just so much trash, and it does. It's embarrassing, really, but that the resource like that has been just destroyed, and I see people do it all the time fishing, on the river. They'll pull up beside on the Trinity there, and they're fishing out of their boat, and they're throwing everything they drink, their cans, beer cans, all on the shore or in the water. It's terrible. It really is.
I tell people, just take 10 seconds, put them in a food line bag or something in your boat, and then just throw it out at the trash.
Yeah.
It's just crazy that the people that their mindset just thinks, man, I don't want this in my boat and just chunk it out.
Yeah, well, and a lot of them think the Trinity, well, it's so bad, this trash ain't gonna matter, but
yeah,
it's just
A lot of
adding
that
to it.
comes from Dallas. I mean,
Yeah, the Metroplex, it washes in, the culverts and stuff up there,
Right.
and all those areas, and so all that runoff is where all that stuff, and people always ask it, especially that are from out of state. They said, Texas, they don't have any kind of programs that where they get this stuff, and I said, no, it all goes into Lake Livingston down there in the area they call the jungle, and it's just a mass of plastic bottles. Now there is a few nets that they have set up along the way in places that catch some of it, but for the most part, all of it goes into Lake Livingston down there.
That's insane to me.
wow.
Yeah, it is.
You know, a lot of people need to stop and think. Like you're talking alligator dart coming up to the top, rolling. I mean, you take some plastic. They mistake it for bait and trash, that could kill them. I mean,
yeah, I've caught them with plastic around them, and I've caught alligator. I caught one it may have been last season, that had actually nylon cord, like from a set line or a throw line, and that fish had it so long that it had actually growed into the fish inside of its scales when I cut it, and I actually pulled them out, and it left a ring like a scab, or not a scab, but just a raw area where the line had it eventually would have just cut him in two, I guess,
Wow. That's, man, people pick up the trash. Don't throw it in the water, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to take more sometimes if you're going down the lake and one blows out, I'm like, all right, that one's gone. But when we stop, we're going to pick up two
Yeah.
I try to take more with me. It's just having my son, I want to teach him to be a good steward of the environment. I see when I've taken him bank angling, when we were little, we would see people just taking their trash and just when they were done, they just throw it, just chunk it on. My son would be like, "Dad, that guy just threw his trash on the ground." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, that's not the right way to be. Yeah. Let's go pick up some trash on our way out of here."
Yeah, some people don't think anything about it,
Yeah.
What areas when it comes time? What areas do you like doing some of your big trophy catfishing?
I fish like Richland Chambers Reservoir for trophy blue cat. That's where I run all my catfish trips. I very seldom guide on any other lakes. Occasionally I'll go to Lake Palestine some, but most of the time it's just there on Richland Chambers.
That's a good lake, man. There's a I contacted you a couple of weeks ago about there's a tournament coming up in November. I was going to ask you if you wanted to fish it with me, and you're like, "Man, my back."
Yeah.
Hopefully you
I might be
enough to fish, and we can go fish that.
Yeah. Yeah, I might be back in action by then. Hopefully, I don't know how long I'm gonna be down. Depending on what all they have to do, but my back's a mess, and so it's got me out of action right now.
That sucks, man. I've got back issues, but not as bad as you.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can get you back in fishing shape.
Yeah, I've put it off all I could do, and fished as much as I could, especially year after year of pulling and crawling in and out of the boat and pulling on fish, and my back was just bad anyway, and it's just that all it can do. It's over with for me till I get it fixed. So
what are they going to do to it?
They're going to fuse like my L4 and L5.
Oh, man.
They're completely, mine are completely crushed, and they're crushing the disc and everything. There's no disc between them left. It's bone on bone. And so I'm at a point to where, it's not even an option. They've got to do it because it's just so bad.
Yeah, it makes throwing that cast net, getting bait, doing all the heavy lifting. I mean, I guess you got your clients have they been kind of doing but you got to lasso these giant fish and all that, get them in the boat.
No, man, and that's the thing, Chris, man, I don't know how many trips I've been out there, and I mean, I just have to grin and bear it, and pretend like everything's great, and I'm like in agony, you know. I'm like, God, I can't wait to get home so I can lay down and die, you know. But
Man.
I just suffered through it, you know, through the years, and and that's the reason it's in the shape it's in. I just kept pushing myself till there literally nothing left. I mean, I barely can hardly get around right now, and I'm waiting for my surgery, and then hopefully, you know, I'll have a good recovery and can get back at it. The doctor seems very promising, you know, that everything will go back, you know, and it'll fix me up to where I can at least function again. So hopefully so.
And that'd be a blessing, brother, for sure.
Well, are you able to catch fish if somebody else does the lifting and all that?
Yeah, and that's what I think I'm going to try to focus on a little bit. I you know, up until the last couple of years, man, I've done very little fishing myself. I mean, I really haven't. You know, people think, oh, I'm going to be a guide. That's so awesome, you know, and I hear it all the time. I've heard it a million times. I'd like to have $1 for every time I've heard people say, oh, you're a fishing guide. That's awesome. You get to fish every day. No, I don't fish at all, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, you work
but I mean, if you're a successful guide, yeah, if you're a successful guide, you're not going to get to do very much pleasure fishing at all. That's the bad part about being a fishing guide.
Well, trophy catfish season rolls around. You're welcome to roll with me anytime, buddy. You know, I'll do all the work.
Yeah.
We just go have fun catching big fish.
I definitely want to get up there with you on one of those lakes where I can catch me a big one, you know, or one of those 70, 80 pounders. Caught some giants.
Let's go hit Texoma up in the inlet when they're up in there. We got a good chance of getting you one.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Back off, though.
Yeah.
No. Well, I'll do all the heavy lifting. I'll get it in the boat and do all that. I'll hoist it into your lap.
Yeah.
Pictures.
I'll feel like a client then for sure, huh?
I don't mind, man. I don't mind. We need to do some fishing. So
no, I tell you,
I know you're not going to be able to do a lot with that bag, so I'd be happy to take you anytime you want to go.
Just let me know. I've done more fishing over the last couple of years. I've fished a little bit. You know, I've went saltwater fishing some, and just really had never had time to do it. You know, but last year we went and caught some big bull reds. You know, down there on the coast. That was a lot of fun, and hopefully I can get a little more saltwater fishing too.
You know, I live here in Myrtle Beach.
It's time to lay back, old man.
Yeah.
I live here in Myrtle Beach, and I tell you, I've been saying I've done a lot of saltwater fishing. And I tell you what, man, I don't even go down there no more. I've done so much of it. Now it's all freshwater catfishing.
Wow. It just seems like on average, everything
do both.
Yeah, it seems like just on average, those saltwater fish just fight so much harder than you know freshwater fish. They, I guess, you know, it's just even those redfish, they're just so strong. It's unbelievable how hard they fight.
Those 7-foot gar pull pretty hard. They remind me of a saltwater fish.
I've always said I like to get out there and catch some of them big, like tarpon and stuff like that down in Florida sometimes.
Yeah, I
love to do that.
Usually shark fish, just because they're fun to catch. You know, they're fairly easy to get to. I'm not really some to eat, but not sharks. I'm really down there just to have fun. You know, sharks are fun.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you, I went 2 years ago for the first time, you know, offshore, for red snapper. And my buddy, I told him, you know, man, I never caught a shark. I want to catch a shark. Well, we were in about 300 foot of water, and I caught about a 5-foot black tip, and he kicked my butt out there, man. And when I got that shark beat, I told him I don't ever want to catch a shark again, ever. Yeah. it is unbelievable in that deeper water how hard they can fight and just don't give up. Just literally don't give up at all.
Yeah, they got a lot of fight in them. They're fun to catch.
But that, I guess, the shark is probably I caught about I don't know, 40-pound wahoo that fought good, and then I caught some tuna, yellowfin tuna, that were strong fighters too. It's amazing how hard they fight too, as well.
That's for sure. They're good eating too.
Good to eat. That's a good thing about catching them, man. They're good to eat.
They really are.
Yeah, we went to Venice down there one year, and it was amazing. Well, it was about 2 years ago. I went with a friend, and it was
Venice, Louisiana.
Yeah, and we went out and we limited out on yellowfin, and we caught some of those little blackfin tuna and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would drag the War Machine down there, but man, the drive is white knuckles driving a big boat like that. It's like,
yeah, I know. And through that Houston,
by the time I get there, I'm so stressed out. It's like, man, this ain't vacation. This is an ass.
Yeah, when they're wide too, the boat's wide, and you're trying to watch the fenders, and
the whole way. It's like,
you're a nervous wreck. Heck, you got to take a couple of Valium.
Like, man, I don't know if I'll live much longer if I had to drive this drive.
Yeah, it is.
Alex was asking, Chris, what's your PB catfish?
I haven't, just like Gar, believe it or not, my biggest catfish, I caught a blue here on Richland Chambers. It was 62, and it was like 3 pounds shy of the lake record. That's my biggest blue cat. And
that's great
even
fish,
Gar,
man.
but even like Gar, my biggest Gar, I haven't even broke 7 foot on a Gar, my personal best, believe that or not. But it's because if I'm on the river, I have clients, and if you're guiding 6-7 days a week and you get a day off after you done fished 23 days, 25 days, you don't want to be on the river. You don't care if you catch one or not. 8-hour trips and 110-degree Texas weather, just scorching hot every day. There's that catfish angler right there.
I tell you what, that boy catches some monsters, don't he?
I know, man. He puts me to shame now. I'm jelly. Every time I see his picture, I'm always jelly.
What do you say, buddy?
I don't know.
Say thanks.
He has caught some monsters, that's for sure.
He's fun to fish with. God blesses you when you got a kid on the boat. So.
Does that say sharks will kick your ass?
Shark.
Yes, they will. They will. Trust me, I can testify to that.
Yeah, Jack loves sharks. We did some shark fishing. You got you a little. What was that? That was a
person.
Atlantic sharp nose. He got a little 4-footer.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah, that boy right there, I tell you, he flats lazy to smack down to some big catfish now.
He has caught some giants. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, like when I caught my shark out there, I was a little different. I tail rope mine, man. I picked that joker up. I held that dude, and I was like, people say, I know they'll bite you. That's the difference about a gar and a shark. A shark will try to bite you in the boat, where a gar, he's just flopping around. He's not worried about biting you. Now, not saying they won't bite you, because I got some pretty nasty wounds from them. I've had some stitches before from gar, and some where I needed stitches bad and didn't go get them.
Dog. What Richard was, I believe, what type of rods do you use for gar fishing?
I use Chris, close your ears now, Chris. No,
we got all kinds of guys on here, man.
I use the Catch the Fever, the Hellcats is what I use, in an extra heavy, and it's a 7'6", just extra heavy rod. That's what I use, and I'm using a Penn Squall 2 reels and 130-pound braided line is what I run on my Penn Squalls, and I
How
used
long's the leader? How long's the leader line?
about a 3-foot leader.
Okay, and so what you use like a coated steel, nylon coated steel?
Now I don't. I use a American fishing wire. It's called their surf strand. I use a 1x7. Well, it has 7 strands in it, and I use 90-pound surf strand is what I use.
Okay.
And but I crimp, of course, crimp. Some people use solid wire and they'll do like, twist it. But I use a braided line, or excuse me, braided wire, and I crimp everything and make all my leaders myself.
Yeah, crimping is the way to go for sure. I know, all our pre-made catfishing rigs here, we at CLW, I crimp everything.
Yeah, I got into crimping about 2 years ago. I'll do it for all my catfish rigs now.
Oh yeah.
Do you crimp your catfish rigs too, or you just
I'm still old schooling on my catfish. That might be why I hadn't caught a big one.
I got into crimping. My buddy's like, "You got to try crimps," and then Jamie's like, "I just started these crimps. You ever use them?" I'm like, "No," but I just had some buddies tell me, "Try some crimps because it's clean and it's just they work." And so I tried them. I'll go back. I love them, man.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, it is a lot cleaner setup, and it's more reliable if you do it right than not.
Yeah, I think if you're doing one rig, it's quicker just to tie the knot. But if you're rigging up, like cat fishermen usually rig up. You set up your assembly line and you start crimping. It actually saves you quite a bit of time over doing a bunch of rigs. And I was worried that I was going to have some failures just because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I hadn't had, I've been doing it 2 years and never had one fail. Not one crimp has failed on me. So
and that's one of the reasons I didn't try it on the, like the mono and crimping is I was always terrified of losing a big fish because I over crimped or crimped it incorrectly or whatever, Yeah.
That's how I was. I did a bunch of testing at the house before I ever fished with it because I was just like, I wanted to have confidence in the rig. And they worked. Never had one slip or pull on me either.
That's what.
It definitely saves you a lot of time, especially like here I'm averaging probably 50 to 75 a day just about sometimes, and it just saves you so much time. And I double crimp everything, so I know for sure.
I haven't double crimped anything, but I haven't had any failures on any. I did have to figure out the proper way to crimp, and I was under crimping because I was using the size crimping tool it was telling me to use for the crimp. Well, that's not. It's actually the size below it, and and then I didn't have any slips, so I moved to the size below the crimp, what it says to use for that size line. And it solved that issue. So, little tip for you guys that want to crimp: if you're crimping, crimp with the size under what it's recommending you crimp with on your tool. And
I've never tried the mono. The only thing I've done is just like I said on the steel leader, and just because I knew I couldn't mess that up, or I thought I couldn't anyway.
I tell you though, it works. I've had people say, "Damn, man, your stuff is so strong it pulls the boat around sometimes." Well, it's working then.
I got to commend you, man. I wouldn't want to sit down and make those leaders. I hate making leaders anyway, especially to sell them. Golly, that would be dreadful.
Man, I tell you,
my last trip, I got to. I started to realize. I looked at some of my hooks, and I was like, "Man, these hooks need to be replaced." Well, I dug into my tackle bag, thinking I got some pre-tied rigs in here. I was like, "Damn!" I guess I can leave these old hooks on here.
Get the file out, huh?
Yeah, I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to be tying on the water. I can't stand tying rigs on the water. That's
Yeah. I've got one whole wall over on this side right here. It's lined with different size hooks with the line already on them, just waiting for me to go through and make up all the
trophy catfish season. I'm prepared, but this time of year, it's like, yeah,
it's vacation time.
hell with it.
But yeah, I actually enjoy it. I mean, you know, I really do. It's something I've got so used to. Right behind me, you can't see, but the whole wall is jammed full of pre-made rigs right here. And like I said, we average about 50 to 75 a day.
And but you know, I guess you've got all your stuff set up. You got a system, and so it can a whole lot more streamlined, I guess, than trying to just do it like I would do it. I'm dropping beads all in my recliner.
Since he started tying rigs, he got him some glasses. So that's I already know that's got to be the reason you got the glasses, because for tying the rigs.
I tell you, I mean, sometimes even especially making like for going to catch your bait fish with the little small mono going through the little small hooks. I mean it. You look at it all day. I mean, it's like, shit.
I think you're a year or two younger than me. It seemed like at this age, boy, your eyesight for tying. I used to get tie in my sleep, and now I'm like,
well, heck,
a real bright light. I'm like, damn.
That's the way I'm tying. Like on monofilament now, I'm tying in braille. Now I can't even see it all out there. I'm trying the easiest knot I can. I need glasses bad right now. My other prescriptions done went downhill, and so I'm just feeling my way around now. Good thing I can't
I felt like a new man the day I put these things on. I was like, whoa, that's what it really looks like.
Monster Mafia, for my mono, I'm using high seas crimps. I got some other ones for my steel leaders, but they're not high seas. I don't know what they are.
Yeah, that's I use all their stuff. American Fishing Wire owns high seas and all that.
It makes a difference because I tested like 8 different crimps, and those high seas.
Yeah,
I mean, it's every single time they're very the stress on your line, because I did a stress test I wanted to make sure my crap wasn't going to be messed up while I was catching fish. And they all broke exactly the same on high seas. Now, I tried all these other brands, and they broke all over the place.
That's good to know.
Chris, I like mine just a little bit longer right here.
That's the ones I use. That's the high seas. That's the oval crimp.
Yeah. So
the double.
Yeah.
So I'll put 2 of those on each rig. I'll double crimp them on each rig.
And I think for the steel ones, you use a double barrel, so it's like shaped kind of like that. And for the mono, you use one that's shaped kind of like that. I tried the double barrels on mono. They cut the wire. They like when you really put stress on them, they cut that mono. So I found that high seas one that's shaped like that's the one to use. Steel's different, you're not going to cut into it like mono.
And if you're using the 8 pound, that 1.00 is perfect for it.
Yeah.
So definitely when you go get it, pay attention. If you're using 100 pound, 80 pound, definitely pay attention. That's important.
Yeah. Use the right size crimp, and then when you use the tool, use the size under what it's rated at where you're supposed to crimp. So if it says you're at the 1.0 to crimp with the tool, go down to the 0.8 or, I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't done it in a while, but go down a size and to crimp that sucker down.
And also the crimping tool makes a lot of difference. They are definitely not created equal.
That's important.
Tools.
I like these right here. I mean, a lot of people, if you look at the back right here or the front, they have the numbers on them. I'll go through probably 4 of those a year just because as much as I crimp.
You're doing a bunch every day. So
I use the same brand you're using too on the crimper too. It just
Yeah.
I've had the best results, and using braid. A lot of the crimpers get dull and won't cut the braid.
Yeah.
But after a little bit, and even the excuse me, steel leader, not braid, but it won't cut the steel leader very good, and they get dull just after just a
Yeah.
few uses. And I'm like, I done paid $40 for these things, and I hadn't used them a couple of weeks, and they won't even cut steel leader anymore.
Yeah.
But that brand there is a real good brand, and they stay sharp, and they crimp just perfect for me as well.
Yeah,
That's
they
the
do.
ones I got.
Yeah, they do a real good job. I've started out when I first started out, I had a couple different name brands. It just wasn't holding the way I wanted to.
Man, you can spend a lot. I haven't used the ones that are expensive.
Oh yeah,
they can spend a lot on it.
Yeah. There's so many different brands and styles, and and you can spend literally whatever you want to spend on a pair of them. But even on the super expensive ones, some of them just don't last.
That's what I've heard. The $200 pair ain't any better than $40 set we're using.
And like I said, I'll go through four of those a year, just as much as we crimp. And that's something you got to pay attention to, because once it starts wearing out, that one little bit, if you don't pay attention, could mean a world of difference in catching a big fish or losing it.
Oh yeah.
So definitely Monster Mafia on my catfish rigs, I still tie a knot at the hook. At that connection, I'm still using. I'm still snelling that knot.
Yeah.
It's all my other connections is where I use.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for gator guard, Chris, you're using crimp at the hook, right?
Right. Yeah. I'm using a crimp
hook for a treble hook.
Yeah. I'm crimping on both ends, and I actually put a weight in my leader. Some guides tie a swivel on, but my gar leaders have a weight. I use 1.5 ounce no roll in all my gar leaders, and that's to hold them. Like if there's current in the river, it's so my baits will sort of hold in place where I put them. Now, when there's not any current, you can position them anywhere out there, and they'll sort of hold in place depending on where you're at. But with a little bit of current in the river, even when it's not extremely high, if you don't have just a little bit of weight, just a cut piece of carp will just roll, down through there till it hangs up on a snag or something. And so to prevent that, I use that weight. That way it'll hold it. And you got, but gar,
is it like a 3-way swivel where, you just go ahead and clamp that no roll down, or is it on a slide?
It's on a slide. Mine goes all the way, I actually like my hooks crimped on, and then the no roll will slide down the leader, and then I crimp my swivel on the other end. So that no roll can slide back and forth on that 3-foot leader.
Okay. Gotcha. So you got the no roll on your steel leader.
Yeah, it slides up and down. That's the way I rig up.
Okay. I hadn't seen that rig.
And we were talking about the floats. I told you I tie 10 foot above it, and my floats are pegged. That way I always know where my fish is with that bait. And another thing, here's a little, I'm gonna share now this is gonna be for the guys that gar fish out of a boat. A lot of guys don't know this trick, and this goes back to that line stop tied on at 10 foot. If I get a big gar and it gets hung up in timber, I can tie that float on above that line stop, and cut the line on the reel off, and then let that gar, a lot of times, will swim out from under that log pile and drag that float with him out in the river, and you'll see the float come back up, and then I'll pick up the tail end and tie back onto the rod again, back onto the line.
I've heard that. I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I've heard that that's one of the main reasons guys use it in the river when they're around timber, because those big ones, they're intelligent. They know how to get you off of them. So a lot of times they'll head straight for that.
Yeah, they'll go straight for a log pile.
Yeah.
That's some good information right there.
Yeah, but with the line stop, you just cut it and give that fish some time, get back over there and set up again and fish. And a lot of times, you'll look back up and all of a sudden there's that float going down the river, with that fish. And I'll just untie the boat and then go right out there and pick up and tie it back on and then fight the fish. And all of a sudden you're the hero.
Have you noticed that the bigger, badder fish, they like to head up current when they take it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, that's one of the things that always gets exciting about gar fishing. If you got say a carp head on there off about a 3-pound carp, and man, you see that float pick up and it goes to easing up river real slow, creeping by the boat. Usually it's a monster. That's just what they do. It's a telltale sign. 9 times out of 10, when a fish does that, it's going to be a big fish.
Wow.
I'm getting excited. Let's go fishing. Chris, I'm going to wheel you out the wheelchair, buddy. Let's go.
Man, I enjoy it. I really do.
Man,
I really enjoy
pushing y'all boys for sure.
Yeah. I was excited. And I'll tell you, I was excited about the river because, when we have a year like this where it's been flooded for months, extremely high water, when it goes down, we're going to have a whole new group of fish in this area, that have migrated. So, you just never know what's going to show up in one of these bends because the river's been high for months and months. And as I, said earlier, we talked about them fish will migrate up and down the river, mainly up. But so there's no telling, in the stretches of the river there, what's going to be there. Old Milton will catch some of them, though. Him and Dawson that fish down there at 287.
Wow.
Alexander's Taxidermy is who I went with last weekend. Yeah, we had a good old time. That shit's addictive, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I'm ready to go. He said, let's go. Get in the boat. Let's go.
Yeah. I never get tired. Man, I never get tired of it. I really don't. It's just something, about seeing those big gar like that. They are truly a special fish. And I have tagged so many down there on the river, and it's weird. I'll go through some days I'll catch a tagged fish like every day for 3 or 4 days in a row, and then I might not catch one for 2 weeks after that, But it's neat seeing those fish that I've caught, before and then catching them again.
Milton said he likes to go when it's really high water or after it's gone back down and they go into their holes. Or he said they're just easier to target then rather than they spread out all over and they try to get up close to the shore out of the current.
Yeah, once the river goes down, and gets pretty. Now I'm talking about a leveled off level, where we hadn't had any rain in a while. These fish will get in these certain areas and they'll concentrate. Now of course there'll be gar up and down the river here and there, but in certain bends will be better than others, and they're year in, year out, some of these certain spots produce big fish, every year. And so
you got to pretty much have a jet boat to get to them, right?
Yeah. When it gets low, the river will be literally, less than a foot deep in places. There's rock shoals, gravel bars, and you either have to have a jet boat or mud motor or airboat or something of that nature to get up and down the Trinity there.
Y'all got me boat shopping. Damn.
Yeah. Well, you can buy mine. I'm fixing to sell my big boat.
Oh man.
It'll be.
I can see it now. A new picture coming right beside the war machine. New boat.
My wife's going to kill me.
I'm fixing to put a brand new wrap on it and sell it. My big jet boat. But it'll be high.
Put that you put the enclosure on?
Yeah, it'll be about as expensive almost as one of them fancy glitter boats. Because I've got a lot of money tied in it. I got brand new I had brand new polymer and everything put on the bottom of it and the trailer redone. But yeah, I'm going to put it up for sale and then buy another boat. I usually, keep them every 3 or 4 years and rotate them out.
Yeah, I can't afford your boat.
No, I'm gonna say it's probably gonna be about 85, 80 to 85, I think. I'm gonna list it for. But I mean, it's the biggest, baddest jet boat on the entire river. You can count on that.
Yeah, that thing's beautiful.
Chris, that's you right there, Chris.
Yeah. That's what he needs. And see, he can go ahead and let me know what color he wants the wrap and everything.
I bet you it's gonna be bright green.
Yeah.
My wife, I can just see her in the house now. She's like, that son of a bitch.
Yeah. She's probably saying that about me. She's saying
That's
that
what I'm saying.
about me. I imagine, Chris.
Oh, I was saying all that one.
Yeah.
So when that water's low, the jet prop's the only way you can get through there, right? Or or a mud motor.
Yeah. I mean, there will be stretches of the river you can navigate, and you'll have to idle through there with a regular prop. But I mean, for the most part, man, that Trinity has claimed so many lower units. I've seen boats at the ramp down there before with the whole lower unit knocked off. I've seen them where the transom was tore out, where they, running down through there and hit a log or rocks, and it will claim them there for sure, just because there's so much timber, and then you have rock shoals with rapids and a little bit of everything, you can encounter.
Rebecca's already telling me in chat, Chris, don't think about it because I've been talking about one of those jet-powered motors here.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I'm going
to talk myself into getting something because I just like chasing big fish. And then once trophy catfish season's over, it's so freaking depressing for me, man.
Well, a lot of guys like you, Chris, they'll buy especially – that do what you do, they'll buy say a mud motor style boat, that they can fish backwater for catfish, some too. And then
that's kind of what I was thinking. I don't need to run 30 miles up the.
No,
I could go find some fish. I mean, I could go slap my freaking Helix 12 on my mud motor boat and go find some fish to at least scratch.
Well, I mean, there is bends in the river, within a mile or two of the ramp there, the 287, that you can catch monsters in, Even last summer, it was way into the summer, and one of the first, there's a big bend upriver from the ramp there, and the people that fish it will know it, but it's just a real huge bend, and I was sat there, and we were actually fishing at night because the water in the river had gotten so hot. The bite is just almost non-existent. So I was running a few night trips, which I normally don't do. But we were sitting there at night, and, of course, I had the live scope just scanning out where we could just watch fish going back and forth. And, there was this hole had several 7-foot-plus fish, and it's just right upriver from the ramp, and it gets a lot of pressure because it's so close, but it's full of fish, so – and – gar fishing is a lot about timing. You just got to have your bait out there when that big fish is hungry to pick it up.
Yeah, I pretty much got myself talked into it. I've been shopping for one, so.
Yeah. And you can buy like Milton has, like an outboard and put a jet drive lower unit on it. I've had a couple of boats like that too, with the jet drive on them.
Yeah, it's not like I'm out there like you every day or anything.
Yeah.
Just enough to.
And, Chris, and I'm trying to be a boat salesman, but if you buy your aluminum boat with an outboard and you put a jet drive on it, you can swap the prop back.
Yeah.
And run the lake with it too. That's the good part.
Well, I got a lake boat. I mean, I got to have a big water boat for the lakes I fish. There's no way I could use one for the other. It's
right.
They're completely different styles of fishing. Gotta have a boat for each.
You probably just give me a good idea. I might try to find one for my 200 for my Pro Cat now.
Yeah, there is a. I've got the number. It's called the Jet Doctor. It's Ernie Sales and Service up there, and he's the major dealer for those jet drive lower units. And it just depends on the model of your motor, whether he has them in stock or not. We bought one not too long ago for that 250 Honda that's on that Sea Arc I fish out of, but I hadn't put it on yet because I've been down. So that'll be a
Chris, what are
project.
your thoughts about a tunnel hull?
Sir?
What's your thoughts of a tunnel hull?
Man, I had now my jet drive I used to have on that big boat I had before. I had a 150 Mercury on it, and I had the jet drive on it. It was a tunnel hull, and I had that hull especially built, for a jet drive. And some people, if you go on the jet boat forums for like the outboard jets that are like there's one on Facebook called Texas Outboard Jets, but if you go on there, you want to start an argument, you start talking about tunnel hull or no tunnel hull, and those guys get fired up. They believe it, they're either all for it or dead against it, one or the other. It's just personal opinion. I ran a tunnel hull and I had good results out of it, so I don't have any complaints with one, but some guys don't like them and some do.
Yeah, I see where I can get a decent jet prop boat, aluminum. It's gonna take about 15 grand to get a decent one. One that's worthy of where it's just not an ass whipping while you're out there, because they're dangerous too. I mean, if you don't get the right boat, it's also pretty damn dangerous. Being on, I mean, it's just a different style of fishing being out there doing that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen.
What it'd be hard to get used to is you're used to a prop, then going to that being able to run shallow water. It's going to be like trying to get used to that.
Yeah, and it handles a little different because the back of the boat slides a little more because you don't have a skeg in there, so it's a little learning curve. Just like going from a jet drive outboard to a jet boat. They drive completely different. Than that too.
Chris, you'll have one next week, won't you, buddy?
I've been looking. There's not a whole lot to be had. I mean, if you want to spend a lot of money, you can go get one real quick. But if you want to find a decent deal on one, you got to be ready when you see one.
It's a time of year, right now, it's fishing season.
Yeah, everybody wants one right now.
Yeah.
I want to go get in on some of that. I've got buddies that go flathead fish your section in a regular prop motor.
Yeah, you just got to know the river and take your time. And it all depends on the depth too, Chris.
Yeah.
Because now bottomed out, when that river gets like on the gauge, I always measure it from the gauge up at Trinidad. When that dude gets down to about 8 foot, 7.5 on that gauge, it is dangerous. I mean, there's fish out there with ticks on their back when it's like that. And, I mean, it literally, you can't hardly get up and down it, and for some reason, the last few years, it has been extremely low during the summer and up until this year. I mean, it's some of the lowest I've ever seen it. Even to me, I'm in a regular aluminum jet boat with polymer on the bottom, and I had some spots that were really making me nervous. And even year before last, my wife was with me, and I run way upriver, and I got through a spot, and man, that jet boat, the bottom of my hull hit them rock shoals going up through there. When I went up through there, and I got up there, and I set up fishing. And my wife was back there by me, and I told her, I said, I'm fixing to reel up. We fixing to head back down. I said, I can't even focus on fishing because I'm terrified of getting back through that spot. And but that, like I said, the last 2 years it's gotten like that down there. But if it's up above that, in the 10 foot, 12 foot range, you can fish it in any kind of boat. You just got to be careful.
Yeah.
It's just during the lowest.
Now, I could take the War Machine, right? I mean,
you could go right back there behind the dam where y'all were fishing with it, no problem.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I've seen all kinds of boats back there when it's high, because if you catch, there's that. Could you see that wing dam coming across back there, Chris? The concrete dam was it exposed? There's a wing dam back there, and it's right where that cable is. And when the river drops out, it will hold water between that dam and the spillway, and so
Okay.
it keeps that canal full. So there a lot of fish will get trapped back there. But when it's like that, when it's just coming up to that wing dam, you'll have a lot of guys that you'll see bay boats and bass boats, all kinds of things, because the hybrids and the white bass will just school up back there by the hundreds, depending on the year. And when it gets to that, but right before it comes over that dam, they'll just will be just packed in there by the thousands, and you can just catch them every cast. And so a lot of people put all kinds of boats in when it's like that to fish.
Man.
Yeah, it's not going to be much longer though. That water level is going to be coming down pretty rapidly now, right?
Yeah. I guess it was about 3 years ago back there, Chris. Man, there were so many white bass and hybrids. You would literally watch them school for hours and hours. I had a guy while we were gar fishing. Man, he caught hybrids till his thumb was just riddled. I mean, just shredded up. I don't know how many he caught, but it was literally every cast, when they're in there like that. And those big gar, they're eating them too when they're
heck yeah. Yeah, they like them probably as much or more than anything. I bet.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of sand bass, in the Trinity anyway, and so it's one of their main food sources, I'm sure, because there's so many in there they can't help but eat them.
They make a lot of noise when they're feeding. I think that draws other predatory fish straight to them because it's like there they are, they're over there. I'm just gonna go run right over there and eat one.
Them big blues, they like crappie and white bass too.
Chris,
it's amazing.
For everyone that's just joining us, how can they get in touch with you? How can they book a trip with you, my friend?
I've got two sites. One is texasfishingaddiction.com and the other is garfishingaddiction.com. So either one of those. And like I say, I'm a little out of commission right now, so I'm not tentatively. I'm booking some trips for a buddy of mine's running some trips too for me. And
Chris went in and got a back procedure yesterday. I was talking to him on the phone. He's like, "Man, I've been sorry, man. I've been in the hospital today." I'm like, "Yeah, son."
Yeah, it's been rough, man. I went from guiding up here on the lake, almost every day for hybrids and white bass, about a month ago, to not guiding at all, to sitting in a recliner or the bed every day.
I saw you got a nice new recliner.
Yeah. I had a pretty primo one, but my kids got me one that has heat and the massage and all that. And it's something else. It's really, now that's when you're getting old, when you're excited about a recliner.
Man, I need one of them.
So you can tell.
My wife, when I come home from work yesterday, she had a rocking chair with it like a bow on. Like, yeah. I turn 50 and I get a rocking chair.
Yeah, you can tell I got a little more gray than y'all got, I think. So I may be, I don't know, am I the senior on here tonight? I never would have dreamed I'd be the senior. I don't know how this happened.
I just told somebody yesterday, now now when we go fishing, now I'm the old guy a lot of the times. I've always been the young guy trying to learn from all these awesome anglers. Now I'm the old guy with all these people coming on my boat.
It was funny. We went dove hunting this year with a group of guys here close to Corsicana, me and my son, and there was a big group of us. We didn't know any of the others except for the guy that invited us, and me and my son were on the end, and we're shooting, and I hadn't dove hunted in years, but I knocked down several. And that one guy, he said, "Man, that old guy's tearing their ass up down there." And I'm looking around. Where is he? He's talking about me. I'm like, "Is there an old man out here somewhere?" I'm like, "Where?" Hell, I was that old man.
Man.
Oh, that's greatness, man.
Yeah, old guy. I guess that's where you can't fight it. It's here. It's gonna get to everybody, I guess.
That's the day and time, brother. That's the day and time, man.
Death and Texas.
About fishing, though, the older you get, the better you get at it.
Oh yeah,
I would say at this stage, everybody's fishing life right here, it's just at this point, it's just eat. It's just you just know
Well,
what to do every time. It's
and Chris,
easy.
and like for me, man, I've always been a student of the game of any kind of fishing. Like I said, as you know, I guide for everything, and
Yeah,
and I just love to fish. Period. But I think that's where a lot of guys they hurt themselves so much as a fisherman because they think they know it all and they don't want to listen or try to learn anything from people around them. And man, if you think you know it all fishing, you're sadly mistaken.
I've
You
learned
are,
a million freaking tricks from
yeah,
guys like you. Just going and fishing with guys who I thought were great and trying to learn from them. I
yeah.
still try to learn. I still like fishing with great anglers and trying to pick up what they're doing. We all do it a
Yeah,
little different. That's
I
what's
know it.
learned. It's
Yeah,
like if I went fishing with you, you'd probably do some stuff different than I do, and I like to
yeah,
learn.
yeah. And this sometimes just little things make a world of difference.
Yeah, it could be something very minute too that just makes the day easier.
Yeah, and the thing about it, like
Experience.
I'm praying that I'm able to fish. Of course, into the fall for trophy catfish season. But I've got some things that another guy had told me that went on another guided trip, and he was just telling me about different things and different depths and stuff, and how this other guide fish. And I thought, well, man, I'm going to try that. This coming fall. Just to see what kind of success I have, because every lake varies depending on what produces and what water depths. Just because it just depends on that water body, how deep the water is on that particular. So the fish act a little different sometimes depending on the water you fish, and so I'm going to try that some of the things that guy was implementing and just see how it does here on Chambers, for me.
Yeah, I want to come down there and fish. We got another one of our teammates that does real well down there. Billy Bever. He's a pastor down there in Groesbeck,
Mm-hmm.
and he does real good on that lake. I'm like, man, I'd like to come down there and see how good I could do.
Oh, I don't want to see it. I'm scared. I don't want you to come down here, Chris. I'm scared
Well,
to see it.
I'd like for you to come with me. That's why I called you about the tournament. I'm like, hey, I see this tournament. I'm like, I know a guy I'd like to team up with to go win that thing. There's only one person I really know that I feel like, all right. Yeah. I mean, we could probably go do it.
Well, I know some areas I've caught some big fish there that always produce, and normally on the average day, I can move to one of the areas I fish and at least get into some fish there,
your lake, I see it a lot like my home lake. But probably has a little more, just more of the same size fish as my lake has because it's not as much pressure. But I feel like there's a lot of those 20 to 40 pound fish in your lake. I mean, I see your production. I'm like, okay.
Well, and now
built to me.
The
layout of the lake is very similar to my lake. The depths, the structure, it's pretty similar to my home lake.
It's amazing. I mean, how different lakes vary. Just like Tawakoni was stocked 1 year apart from Richland Chambers. Tawakoni produces some 70s and 80s, but Richland Chambers, the lake record is 65. You catch a 50 on Chambers, that's a big fish for Chambers. But
yeah, that's how Louisville is. Why? I mean, I don't know, but I bet there's some serious. I bet there's some giant. I bet you there's some really good fish in Chambers.
Yeah, and because I
just
know
like back. I know I've hooked into an 80 in there. I had it right next to the boat. It would have been 20 pounds over the record at the time. I'm like, I know there's something in there. I've marked one that looked like probably 100-pounder, so I know they're in there.
It just seems impossible for there not to be,
right?
With especially with Tawakoni stock within and plus, you think about Richland Chambers, both of the creeks fed into the Trinity, so it trapped blue cat in those creeks and flatheads that were there. Probably they could have been any size, before the lake was built. I mean, you know, there could have been blues in those creeks that were 40, 50, 60 pounds then, you know, from the beginning, from the get-go in the lake. But just
Yeah, I've
because
often wondered why Tawakoni was so well. It's not as good as it used to be, but
it's went downhill for sure compared to what it was.
It's something magical in that water that made those fish massive.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I firmly believe that it's in the water and in the bait fish, but I think a lot of it's in the water itself, the minerals or something. Because I mean, anybody that knows Richland Chambers, it has plenty of bait fish, man. I catch piles of drum there, you know, in the cast net, and some of my secret spots I have, and you know, I have literally had 300 pounds of baby drum in my cast net at one time, and where I couldn't even get it over the side of the boat, and caught it in the creek channel, and so it's got drum, it's got gizzard shad, millions of white bass and crappie, you know. So I mean, a trophy blue cat has everything in the world to eat there, so there's no reason they shouldn't grow to, you know, monstrous size.
Yeah, but some guys like, oh, it's genetics. I'm like, it's the same genetic strain that's in all of our lakes. I don't know. To me, it's got to be something in the water. It's like,
well, just like you know, look at like Lake Fork and Lake Palestine, the crappie, the size of crappie they produce compared to all these other lakes. Yeah. I mean, absolute monsters. You know, they're premium crappie lakes, and you know, there's so much difference between all the other lakes. Yeah, you'll catch crappie on them, but you're not going to catch nowhere near the size like Lake Palestine and Lake Fork. It has, I mean, 3-pound crappie come out of there all the time, and you catch they're once in a blue moon out of a lot of these other lakes, you know.
Yeah, it's the same with blue cats. I mean, I try to go to the lakes where I feel like I can go get me a 50 every trip in the winter. I mean, at this stage, that's kind of, I'd like to try to get one in the 50-pound range, at least get a shot at one every trip. There's a lot of lakes you can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, my home lake's one. I fish that lake all year and maybe get two. Maybe just one.
Yeah.
Chambers. Some of these other lakes, man, it's like,
Richland Chambers, you know, it doesn't get the pressure that a lot of the other. It's one of the best kept secrets in Texas. I mean, as far as lakes, you know, everything in it is. If it had a weak point right now, I would say it's crappie. I mean, that's the least productive fish in Richland Chambers right now. Hybrids it's absolutely infested with hybrids. We've had such a stocking program, and white bass, you know, blue cat, everything else is plentiful except the crappie, but there's lots of 20, 30-pound blues in there too.
I bet you there's some giants around those hybrids. I bet you there's some blue cats following them hybrids around.
And we have some monstrous schools of hybrids. I mean, we really do.
Man,
it's crazy.
Now you got me excited to come down there and fish. So get yourself back in fishing shape, buddy. So
I hope to be. That's for sure. I miss it, man. You talking about it feels like I've been in prison sitting at the house because I haven't been fishing, you know. Even my good friend actually was going with me on my trips to catch bait every morning just because my back had gotten so bad. He was, you know, he's not even a guide, and he was going out there throwing the net, helping me catch my shad on my hybrid trips, you know.
Richard says, I'm not getting old. I'm getting longer in my years. And I said, yeah, I just turned 25 with 25 years of experience.
Yeah.
Till I went to Six Flags today and I realized I'm old.
It'll take you a few days to recover from that. That's harder than work, man.
My feet hurt.
Six Flags.
My back hurts. Well, Jamie, you got anything you want to promote before we get off of here?
Man, just want to say thank you to all of our customers out there. We appreciate y'all guys. This week has been unbelievable busy for all the decals, the hats, the shirts. and lots of drifting weights heading out. So thank you to all of our amazing customers out there, man. It's unbelievable.
Yes, I know Mosley's got a package coming to him for his guide service. I fished with Matt this weekend, one of my good buddies. We had a good time fishing down with Milton, another one of our guide friends. He's been on the show too. So, well, let's give everybody a shout out. First, let's go with Matt Mosley, Team M&M Fishing up at Lake Texoma. He fishes for striper, trophy blue cats. He's a good friend of me, good friend of the channel. It's a teammate of mine. Chris Moody with Texas. Well, he's got 2 guide services. What's your website?
Texas Fishing Addiction. Yeah, Texas Fishing Addiction and then Gar Fishing Addiction are both my websites, and then Facebook pages, of course.
Get with well, his son's running some of his trips right now. He's getting his back in shape, but he'll be back.
I've got a friend of mine that's running some of my Gar trips.
Okay, what's his name?
Dawson Hefner. He runs a Texas Mega Fish. Texas Mega Fish Adventures.
He's a Texas gar fishing legend. Also,
yeah.
So, you know, we fished Milton this past weekend. He's another awesome friend of ours, teammate. His guide service is Extreme Trophy Fishing. I know y'all are friends as well. You know, all of our guys are awesome dudes. We all get along great. Top-notch anglers, good guys. So if you want to get on some giant alligator gar, hit up Chris Moody at what's the gar site again?
Gar Fishing Addiction. Just remember the opposite of Texas. I got to throw that addiction in there because it gets
Texas. I'm always thinking Texas, and I'm like,
yeah,
Texas. Is it Texas gar?
Well, that's what I. Yeah.
Gar Fishing Addiction, Texas Fishing Addiction. If you want to catch hybrids, eater catfish, summertime, he catches a bunch of eater catfish, hybrids, trophy blue cats in the winter, alligator gar in the summer.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
So, appreciate you guys stopping in. Chris, appreciate you spending some time with us.
Yes, sir. I really enjoyed it.
It was a good time. Get that back fixed so we can go do some fishing. And Jamie, appreciate you, brother.
Always, brother. Chris, it was good meeting you, man. Heck of a show. A lot of people learned a lot tonight, and that's what we're all about, man. Appreciate you for being on here.
Appreciate all you guys stopping in, spending time with us. It was a fun show. We'll be back next week. Next week we got, let's see, I think next week's JT Catfish Kid, Tommy Ruffin. We're going to get to hear JT's story of his 105-pound blue cat. Tight lines. God bless. Azul out.
Later, everybody.